Hello everyone and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're going to check out Kamen Rider Gaim Powerscaling tier list 10 years after. Sorry for being late to this particular video reaction. I believe this was requested months ago. I believe when it came out actually, so I'm almost half a year late to this, so I apologize. But I believe this particular video was made by the same creator that made the other tier lists that we checked out when he ranked the weakest to strongest Kamen Riders, right? I like his voice, and yeah, hopefully we will go straight into the crazy statistics of why some are, I guess, stronger than the others. I'll just leave, I guess, the words to him. And if you want to see this particular video for yourself, the link will be in the description below. You can go check it out for yourself first and then come back to my reaction, or I guess sync it up with me, because I will probably cover that video because YouTube doesn't like me. Here we go. Without any further ado, let's check this one out.
Exactly 10 years ago today, the first episode of Kamen Rider Gaim aired, which is why
Gaim.
I'm celebrating the 10-year anniversary.
I am saying it wrong all this time.
My favorite season of all time, if it wasn't obvious,
Alright.
by ranking all 21 Gaim Riders in order from weakest to strongest. For this video, I'm going to be dividing the list into tiers to help visualize the difference in power levels.
Alright.
Each combatant is measured at whatever is considered their peak physical strength. Sorry to any fans of these stage shows or novels, but I will be considering both as non-canon for the sake of this video, as well as the games, manga, anime, SIC, or
okay,
anything
they have a lot.
that isn't a TV show, movie, or
Got
databook.
it.
If you still haven't watched Gaim, I would highly recommend it, as this video contains spoilers for the entire season.
Okay.
Let's begin.
Noted.
At the absolute bottom,
Yeah, this is the season with all these fruits, right?
An easy pick. Hase sucks. Not only is he physically weak, he's also stupid. I am considering Kurokage with access to his monster form, but there's no evidence that it's any stronger than his base. It's actually an even worse transformation since it makes him less intelligent, which was already his worst quality. And just to rub even more salt in the wound, you know the Kurokage troopers? Well, since the mass-produced belt isn't any weaker than his, and the Drossel employees have better weapons and
Good music in the background.
I'm pretty sure Hase would unironically lose to your average singular Kurokage trooper.
Okay.
You heard me right. He's weaker than the literal mooks based off him. I already covered Jam in my all-female Kamen Rider
That was a
video.
start.
Basically, anybody with Michi's level of skill is able to beat him. I suppose Jam could still force his opponent to surrender by holding the girl he possessed.
Oh,
hostage,
right, this was the
this
possession.
is such an incredibly specific win condition, and half the characters on this list wouldn't even care about endangering a civilian. So I decided to just disregard it entirely when deciding on Jam's placement. Shura is somebody at least comparable in skill to Michi. I mean, you can't really be the Dawn of an underground fight club and somehow be bad at fighting. He also wouldn't really care about harming an innocent civilian, so long as he can win. I don't think it's fair to say he scales to Jimbamara on arms. Even though he held his own pretty decently against this form, he still lost either way.
Alright,
Even without Jimbo
but
arms,
we are
he's
only
doing
getting
perfectly
started,
fine
so
against him in a 1v1,
please he can
and only
fight.
started to lose after two Kurokage troopers interfered. And I mean, obviously base form Knuckle isn't going to win a 3v1. Come on! You're probably thinking to yourself right now, isn't Tyrant in the wrong spot? I mean, the dude literally uses a Genesis driver, so why is he only Armored Rider Plus level? Well, that's due to the fact that the Loxy Tyrant used was an unstable prototype. The side effects are monstrous, for lack of a better term, and ultimately makes him much weaker than a normal Genesis rider as a result. Worst part of it is, though, Tyrant's rider form isn't even the reason.
Don't worry, there are still guys below you.
No, the reason he just barely crawls up a tier is thanks solely to his uncontrollable monster form, which is too strong for Baron to beat in his base form. Under
Oh,
normal conditions, Tyrant loses to Mango Arms. Eden is using the exact same Lockseed that killed Tyrant, so she belongs an additional spot higher. Her Lockseed also has painful, crippling side effects, but at least she isn't as weak as he is.
okay.
It really only makes sense for me to cover all three of the new forms introduced in Gaim Gaiden Greedon vs. Bravo at the same time, since they seemingly all came from the same source and would therefore be at around the same level. So in what order would I rank them? Well, Sylphie gets absolutely demolished in her fight against Zangetsu, and while Bravo puts up a pretty good fight, he ultimately can't match Greedon's newfound ability. So, of course, I would say Greedon in last place, followed by Bravo, and then Sylphie on top. Wait a minute,
Okay.
hear me out. Yes, while Greedon does ultimately beat King Durian throughout the duration of this fight, Bravo is in the midst of a hypnotic rampage in which he'd blindly attack anything that moves. He's still physically stronger than usual, but he lacks the strategic advantage he would normally have while in control of his own movements. Even assuming Lychee Arms is stronger than King Durian, the gap likely is not that huge, and Bravo has overcome
Damn.
similar disadvantages before.
I'm looking
his
at these suits and
appearance
I'm
when
like,
he demolishes
damn,
Greedon
they
and
went
Kurakage in a
They
2v1.
are very nicely made.
Even though Jonochi does become significantly better at fighting by the end of the season, this is thanks solely to Oren Pierre's training.
Okay.
In other words, Oren would be able to read
Character
every
development.
move Jonochi makes because he's the one who taught them to him. And since both forms are a byproduct of Sylphie's vines, I doubt either would be stronger than her own Lockseed, especially since a stray hit from one of her vines was enough to incapacitate Bravo for several seconds. With this level of strength, Sylphie could possibly be on par with the Genesis driver users or even the Overlords, but so far we've yet to see any hard evidence that she scales that high.
Alright.
Soda!
Genesis Riders.
Kurakage Shin appears in 2 scenes and has less than 2 minutes of total screen time. When deciding on where to place Kurakage Shin, I had to base my decision on how strong he should be in context, rather than going off of pure feats, in which there are almost none. Though the soccer world is an alternate dimension, the characters within it possess the same sort of resources and technology that their alternate selves do. Kurakage Shin is not the same as Tyrant, who is a guinea pig for a much weaker, unstable energy Lockseed. Even though we're never told where he gets it from, there's no indicator to suggest there's anything wrong with Peiko's Lockseed. He definitely belongs at the bottom of the Genesis Rider tier, but he's still a Genesis Rider nonetheless. He also might just not exist at all, but we'll get into that more later. Savior,
Okay.
Saver, whatever his name is.
I don't
if you're
know.
an ancient Knight of Spear fan, you might remember the time I dubbed this the ugliest costume in all of Kamen Rider. And upon rewatching the Gaim Gaiden
Is that
movies,
so?
Yep, the criticism still stands. Saber won't be getting any of his freaky godlike abilities from the novel. If you did want to give him them, then I guess he'd be top tier. Technically, he still has the same weird separation from space-time type abilities in canon, but they aren't nearly as powerful. He can't really die, but you can
teleport?
still beat him. You don't have to destroy his belt either, since he can't regenerate instantly, which counts the same as a loss in this instance. Despite him using the blood orange Lockseed, I don't see any possible relation between him and Bujingaim, so I don't find it fit to scale one to the other. The Zakuro Lockseed's mind control also only works against normal, vulnerable humans. You aren't automatically brainwashed just from touching it. Kugai himself has to hypnotize you as well, which he's failed to do to Ryoma in the past. Saver's supernatural abilities all seem to stem, pun not intended, from the Ringo Lockseed used by Baron and Eden, so it's logical to think his own power could possibly match or even exceed theirs. But if anything, Saver's probably even stronger than this.
Alright.
Since he's using a knockoff version of Ryoma's Genesis Core and Sonic Arrow, Ryoma himself even recognizes them and is shocked he got his hands on
I'm
the
trying
blueprint.
think if
While
I
the
really hate this suit.
bootlegged versions likely would still be inferior
I am
to
not
their
sure.
official counterparts, we've seen how well normal Jimba Arms is able to contend with Genesis Riders in the past. Takatora's skill alone lets him beat or nearly beat Genesis Riders while using the much weaker Sengoku driver. So Saber losing to the combined effort of Zangetsu and Lemon Arms Duke isn't too big of an anti-feat. If anything, the fact he did as well as he did against them is evidence his power could be approaching that of a Genesis driver, especially since he was able to hurt Lemon Energy Arms as badly as he did. Knuckle with Jimba Maran obviously scales to Gaim's Jimba Arms because, well, take a guess. We've already seen how well Jimba Lemon can contend with the other Genesis riders. Gaim is definitely punching within his weight class here, but skill-wise he should be way out of his league. So common thugs like Sid, Kota can realistically beat, but he still feels the need to use Kachidoki against the elite secret agent Yoko, not to mention Takatora, who scales way above her in skill. Neither Zack nor Kota really eclipse one another skill-wise, so I think this is a solid placement for him. I do believe in a true 1v1 cage match, Marika should
halfway there.
fold Sid. However, she lacks his ability to summon multiple Tulip Hoppers and Suika Arms at once. The hollow Suika Arms probably aren't anywhere near as powerful as when it's used by a rider, especially since even normal humans can pilot them apparently. These wouldn't be too difficult for her to beat on her own, but enough of them together in one area, combined with Sid's own attacks, could pretty easily overwhelm her. She definitely has a good chance of beating Sid if she manages to deal enough damage to him before he can keep summoning them, but the skill gap really isn't quite wide enough to guarantee her a quick and easy victory every time. And with that, we can wrap up Genesis Rider tier. Is there anyone I'm forgetting about? No? Okay, moving on. Next is Overlord tier. Characters comparable to the intelligent master race of the Ingves, the Femushinmu. Oh, there's Duke. When Duke said he made his armor a lot stronger, he wasn't kidding. He was able to deal damage to the Overlord Shinmukurun.
Hard one.
Better than Gaim with Kachidoki
I will not try.
Arms could. Kachidoki Arms can withstand a full-on assault from several dozen armored riders at once without a single scratch. It's no wonder he almost killed self-proclaimed city busters like Demushu, but it's not just his base form that scales to Kachidoki Arms though. Duke also turned himself into Hakaider. Funniest shit I've ever seen. It does, however, feature insanity as a side effect, so he's much better off preserving what's clearly his most valuable asset. I suppose Marika could have hypothetically gotten stronger after stealing Duke's driver, but this is pretty much headcanon, since we don't know if the strength advantage comes from the belt itself, the lock seed, or both devices working together in tandem. Oh yeah, and he auto-wins against Marika and Sid by disabling their belts. I'm planning on covering Ryugen in a future video, so I'm not going to delve into too much detail for him. Zangetsu's Kachidoki Arms should be basically identical to Gaim's. If we assume its origin is the same as in the stage show, it was literally Kota that gave it to him, like how DJ Sagara gave Kota his. Ryugen's Yometsuhegiri Arms should be stronger than Kachidoki Arms, being able to impale and nearly kill Kiwami Arms, but Takatora's overcome similar disadvantages before, like the time he almost beat Zangetsu Shin as normal Zangetsu. Plus, his lock seed has no ill side effects, unlike Michi's. However, if this fight features both combatants in character, then Takatora would probably hesitate to deliver the finishing blow to his brother. It depends a lot on the hypothetical scenario that they're in, and whether or not Michi is still bloodlusted versus him, but this one matchup probably favors Ryugen slightly more because of how the fight has gone in the past, in addition to his obvious strength advantage. Even though Ryoma and Takatora do have history together, Takatora would not have the same empathy for his would-be murderer. Duke has lost to Takatora before while using a stronger belt, and even praised Takatora's skill as superior to his. He might be able to take a few rounds under certain circumstances.
Love the
with
music
his
in the background,
analytical
by the way.
abilities combined with his various hacks like illusions and invisibility, but I think Zangetsu still has the advantage for the most part.
Nani?
でっかい怪物と戦っているそんなバカな話があるか仕事に戻れ
Mars definitely seemed like he could have been higher on this list at first, since he's literally a living clone of the Golden Fruit, but he's a pretty piss-poor imitation if you ask me. Kiwami Arms only uses a small fraction of the fruit's full power, and Mars still proved weaker overall. Though don't get me wrong, he is definitely comparable. Mars effectively does have a means of mind-controlling his opponents. It's something he's even able to pull off mid-battle. However, it's not something proven to affect anyone higher than Genesis Rider tier, all of whom he was going to beat anyway. Lapis definitely belongs in Overlord tier since he literally is one. Lapis is weird. The way his powers work imply they might just be illusionary in nature, but Kogane still exists outside of the dream world, so I'm a bit doubtful on that. Even if his powers are purely mental, that would probably make him even stronger since he could just put his opponent to sleep forever, and since he's an intangible ghost, there's no way his opponent can fight back. He could also be interpreted as a universe-level character, since he could rewrite all of reality to live within a soccer-centric society. The pocket dimension he creates isn't really evidence to contain anything larger than Zalame City itself, though, which the Overlord tier riders can already...
Okay, I understand why he meant by
Regardless of how you want
strange.
to interpret his abilities, though, he would still end up in the same spot either way, since Lapis still lost his life while fighting Mars, and Gaim is stronger than Mars. Lapis also just says Gaim is stronger than him at one point, so...
That's why he's the GOAT! Let's go!
I already covered Baron in greater depth in my secondary Kamen Riders ranking video, so I'm going to be focusing on how he stacks up to the other Gaim Riders in this one. When Mars fought against Gaim Kiwami, that was Gaim before his Overlord powers had truly awakened. Lord Baron battled Gaim when he was at his peak, and came within inches of beating him too. So Lord Baron is easily stronger physically, but that still leaves one remaining issue. Couldn't Lapis and Mars just mind control Baron to victory? Well, all of the Overlords, even the weakest, seemingly possess some form of telepathy in addition to their telekinesis. Mars and Lapis fought one another to the death, so we can assume their brain hacks basically cancel each other out. Ultimately, Kota was able to break out of Kogane's mind control on his own without having to rely on help from Lapis. He even did the same when put in a hypnotic trance by the weaker Overlord Regyu. And Kota can do both of these with a lesser mastery of his own abilities. Not only are Kaito and Kota's brains physiologically similar as Overlords, but they should easily have a similar strength of will. If Kaito did manage to get brainwashed, chances are it would only last a few minutes at most before he regains composure. I'm not joking when I say this.
Got it.
Suika Arms could easily be a hypothetical strongest form for Knuckle or Greedon, maybe even Baron. If you want to count the Heisei vs. Showa movie as canon, then this form was able to easily defeat Kamen Rider J, who easily defeated Forze, who easily defeated Skyrider, who's roughly as strong as Ichigo and Ego. Roshiro's
Okay, that's a
best
lot.
speed is around 50 gigatons of energy, whereas the bomb Ichigo and Ego survived was possibly up to 500 gigatons of energy. While an early version of Kiwami Arms is scared by a barrage of nuclear missiles, Ichigo in his weakest form has beaten monsters designed to destroy force fields that are immune to nukes. So there you go. Doesn't really make any sense, admittedly, but if you want to count this as a feat, then Suika Arms is at least as strong or potentially even stronger than the Overlords.
Alright, the golden fruit.
Probably a massive shocker to everyone watching, and I must admit, it was a huge shock to
Okay.
me too, but ultimately, I do believe Bujin Gaim would have to be one of the strongest Kamen Riders from the entire season. Though he appears far too early to scale to the other Overlords, he still manages to earn his placement via scaling to Wizard instead. Wizard's Infinity style was able to absolutely dominate a level 5 Dural Bugster in a fight. In fact, his weaker forms like All Dragon could still land some pretty beefy hits in. While I did say previously that Overlord Invezes could pull off feats clocking in at 50 gigatons without the use of the Golden Fruit, the Dural Bugster would be able to hit with 50,000 gigatons of force.
Huh?
Even assuming Roshuo's 50 gigaton feat wasn't his max output, it's unlikely that he's over 1,000 times stronger than what he's already shown without the fruit. Bujin Gaim doesn't have any hard evidence proving he's immune to mind hacks, but since the gap in power is so wide, chances are he one-shots the other riders before they even get a chance to try it. Lotus Position's one main weakness though is that it basically renders him immobile. Not that this really matters much since he has such long range in this form. I guess if he were competing in a contest to see who could run the furthest, he would lose. But if the competition is based on who would win in a fight, the opponent has no choice but to fight him on his own turf. No, they can't just win by leaving, unless you consider running away from a fight to be the same thing as winning. Who could have possibly guessed? Gaim's in the #1 spot. Despite this, admittedly Gaim's best measurable feat is beating the Gorilla Bugster. It took 2 riders of similar strength working together just to stalemate her. So we can assume she might be around level 6, or at least over level 3. So admittedly, there wouldn't be too far of a power gap between Gaim and his Bujin counterpart.
I mean, yeah, his suit is
Bujin Gaim could
very
potentially
flashy.
even be stronger. So what guarantee is there that Gaim would still win? Well, he might not be definitively stronger, but chances are he is much faster. We know that both are light speed since the Bugsters scale above Ichigo and V3's laser dodging. However, even normal Infinity styles is fast enough to completely blitz guys who can match Beast Hyper's laser dodging. Gaim with Wizard Arms was able to match an even stronger version of Infinity in speed, so it's no wonder why he's able to dodge and weave around all of Bujin Gaim's attacks, and even deal visible damage to his body with his beam attacks. All of the Legend Rider lock seeds were made by Mai to give the riders the edge they need to survive, so it's safe to assume they are each imbued with a small amount of the Golden Fruit's power. Bujin Wizard's Flame Ring was a factor in the lock seed's creation, but all of the Bujin riders are weaker than Bujin Gaim's base form, so it's likely that Bujin Wizard's abilities were almost a non-factor in this fight. So if Gaim with only a small amount of the Golden Fruit's power is strong enough to hurt Bujin Gaim and fast enough to dodge all of his attacks, just imagine what he could do with 100%. But even though close combat wouldn't be an issue for him, with Gaim's power set, he wouldn't even need to get close in order to win. Whatever kinetic energy Gaim is capable of should exceed the amount Ghost needed to lift this huge chunk of Tokyo into the air, and match Kamen Rider Buster, whose sword weighs as much as a literal mountain. Since Gaim is able to find something as specific as an uninhabited planet tens of billions of light years away, he probably wouldn't even need to get close enough to where Bujin Gaim could even see him. Just uproot his tree, fling it through a portal, and watch him die in the vacuum of space. And that's why there's no one strong enough to beat.
Oh, wait, what?
Okay, number 0.
15.
This is new. 15 is the only rider from the show and movies that can scale to Decade's multiverse-busting power. We have seen Decade take some pretty atrocious L's in the past. One time he loses to Blade's King form, but then does completely fine against him in a 9v1 later in that exact same episode, which should stand as evidence that Decade's power level can fluctuate drastically. It is possible Decade just got horribly nerfed in this movie, but 15 still has Decade arms anyways, so I'm not sure if it would even matter if he was nerfed. So that's it then. If you count the Sentai crossover films, 15 is the absolute strong. Honestly, you should have expected this by now. Ichigo Arms beats 15, so it only makes sense for him to be up here. I did say Gaim's complex multiversal feats from the novel wouldn't be included, but if we count this form, it wouldn't even matter. Ichigo being able to beat 15 in the Tokyuger crossover special also kind of fucks up the scaling. Even though it did take 3 riders to beat 15, Decade can destroy an infinite multiverse, and infinity divided by 3 is still infinity. This would, however, mean that Gaim Riders that scale above Ichigo, like Bujin Gaim and Kiwami Arms Gaim, are also complex multiversal. So maybe normal Gaim Kiwami belongs in this spot instead. Also, Black RX is stronger than all 10 of the other show riders combined, which would then mean Baron with Mango Arms is stronger than Decade. Okay, I'm starting to see why comments keep hounding me for using feats from this movie. And there you have it, folks. That was every Kamen Rider from Gaim.
Bushy. That was a nice finish to this one. Alright, I mean, is there any season? Probably there isn't any season that the main Kamen Rider isn't the strongest one. I mean, okay, I guess if we count these 2 tier lists at the end, then it is possible. But yeah, in general, the main Kamen Rider is the strongest. But yeah, it was interesting that we started with I guess a random guy who is stupid and basically went all the way up here to those that have crazy multi-dimensional powers, or yeah, the powers that we don't even comprehend. So yeah, this was cool. Kind of got lost in the middle of it with all the information. I mean, yeah, for those that watch this particular season, made probably more sense and you could follow along pretty nicely. I don't take this as a spoiler whatsoever, because all the information that was here was just like stacked on top of each other. So if I ever, I guess, go check this particular season, which I highly doubt, I don't know, you can surprise me in the future, but currently I'm not planning of watching any Kamen Rider seasons. I will not remember this exactly, so yeah, I don't see this as spoilery whatsoever. If anything else, it was cool to hear his voice again and to see how crazy Kamen Riders can be. And the suits for this particular season are very nice. I am not sure if the suit that he dislikes is the worst out of them all for me. I wouldn't say. I like that particular reddish. I guess all the time it was showcased in some sort of a dark scene, so I'm not really sure how he would be looking in I guess daylight. But I don't think that particular suit was bad per se. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, click that bell for notifications so be informed of my next reactions, gameplays, reviews and other things you guys put in the comments below for me to check out. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!